In 1928, a lettuce farm in the San Fernando Valley was transformed into a movie studio. That studio would go on to create some of the most iconic moments in television history: Gilligan's Island, Gunsmoke, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and one show that redefined American comedy forever: Seinfeld. For 9 seasons, Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer walked through these sounds. The famous New York street set where they filmed exterior shots still stands today. The same stage where Jerry's apartment was built hosted over 180 episodes of a show about nothing that became everything. The studio didn't just make television, it made history. But here's what nobody is talking about. In January 2026, the owners of this legendary studio defaulted on a $1.1 billion mortgage. Goldman Sachs is now seizing control. The world's largest independent studio owner is handing over the keys. And the reason why tells a much darker story about what's really happening in Hollywood. Because this isn't just about one studio going bankrupt. This is about an entire industry collapsing in slow motion. And Radford Studio Center, the place that gave Studio City its name, is now ground zero. To understand what was lost, you need to understand what was built. In May 1928, a man named Max Sennett arrived in the San Fernando Valley with a vision. Sennett wasn't just any filmmaker. He was known as the king of comedy. His previous studio had launched the careers of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and W.C. Fields. He created the Keystone Cops. Now he wanted something bigger. He found a 50-acre lettuce ranch at the corner of Ventura Boulevard and Radford Avenue, and he transformed it into what would become one of the most important studios in Hollywood history. The facility he built was cutting edge for its time. Soundstages, a film library, dressing rooms, even a stage with a sunken swimming pool. But here's the detail that matters most. The studio was so significant that the entire surrounding neighborhood was named after it. Studio City. Think about that. The neighborhood didn't exist first. The studio did. An entire community grew up around this place. When sound films arrived in 1929, Sennett was ready. He was the first producer to use RCA equipment. He produced musical shorts that launched Bing Crosby's film career. But then came the Great Depression. By 1933, Sennett was bankrupt. The studio was sold. What happened next would set the stage for decades of Hollywood history. Republic Pictures took over. They specialized in bi-movies and westerns. A young actor named John Wayne got his first breaks here. So did Roy Rogers and Gene Autry. Then, in 1963, CBS arrived, and everything changed. When CBS leased the lot in 1963, they immediately began moving their biggest productions there. Gunsmoke, the longest-running scripted primetime series in American history. 20 years, 635 episodes. All filmed at this studio. My 3 sons. Rawhide. The Wild Wild West. And then came Gilligan's Island. The lagoon where the castaways were stranded wasn't in Hawaii. It wasn't even near water. It was at the northwestern edge of this studio lot in the San Fernando Valley. For 3 seasons, millions of Americans watched 7 castaways try to escape an island that was actually a studio backlot in Los Angeles. That lagoon was eventually paved over in the mid-1990s to make room for a parking structure, but the studio's golden age was just beginning. In 1967, CBS purchased the entire lot for $9.5 million. They invested heavily. New soundstages, new office buildings, new technical facilities, and they began renting space to independent producers. One of those producers was MTM, founded by Mary Tyler Moore and her husband Grant Tinker. In 1970, The Mary Tyler Moore Show began filming here. That show didn't just entertain, it revolutionized television. It launched spin-offs like Rhoda, Phyllis, and Lou Grant. It proved that television could be smart, sophisticated, and still massively popular. The same stage that hosted Mary Tyler Moore would later host another show, one that would become even more influential. Seinfeld. When CBS leased the lot in 1963, they immediately began moving their biggest productions there. Gunsmoke, the longest-running scripted primetime series in American history. 20 years, 635 episodes. All filmed at this studio. My three sons. Rawhide. The Wild Wild West. And then came Gilligan's Island. The lagoon where the castaways were stranded wasn't in Hawaii. It wasn't even near water. It was at the northwestern edge of this studio lot, in the San Fernando Valley. For 3 seasons, millions of Americans watched 7 castaways try to escape an island that was actually a studio backlot in Los Angeles. That lagoon was eventually paved over in the mid-1990s to make room for a parking structure, but the studio's golden age was just beginning. In 1967, CBS purchased the entire lot for $9.5 million. They invested heavily. New soundstages, new office buildings, new technical facilities, and they began renting space to independent producers. One of those producers was MTM, founded by Mary Tyler Moore and her husband Grant Tinker. In 1970, the Mary Tyler Moore Show began filming here. That show didn't just entertain, it revolutionized television. It launched spin-offs like Rhoda, Phyllis, and Lou Grant. It proved that television could be smart, sophisticated, and still massively popular. The same stage that hosted Mary Tyler Moore would later host another show, one that would become even more influential. Seinfeld. To understand how we got here, you need to understand what happened in 2021. The streaming wars were at their peak. Netflix, Disney+, HBO Max, Amazon Prime. Everyone was racing to produce more content than ever before. Studios couldn't build soundstages fast enough. Occupancy rates at Los Angeles studios hit 93%. Into this frenzy stepped a company called Hackman Capital Partners. Michael Hackman founded his real estate firm in 1986. For decades, he focused on industrial properties. But in the 2010s, he made a pivot. He saw the explosion of streaming content. He saw the demand for soundstage space. And he started buying studios. Culver Studios, CBS Television City, Manhattan Beach Studios, Kaufman Astoria in New York, studios in London, Dublin, Vancouver, and New Orleans. By 2021, Hackman Capital had become the world's largest owner of independent studio properties. 40 years of real estate experience. Billions in transactions. Then came the biggest deal of all. In December 2021, Viacom CBS announced it was selling CBS Studio Center, the lot where Seinfeld was filmed, to Hackman Capital and Square Mile Capital. The price, $1.85 billion. It was a massive bet. The purchase was financed largely through debt, with Goldman Sachs providing a commercial mortgage-backed securities loan of $1.1 billion. But Hackman wasn't done. In 2023, the company announced plans to invest an additional $1 billion to renovate the facility. New production offices, sustainability measures. The goal was to transform the nearly 100-year-old studio into a state-of-the-art content creation hub. The vision was grand. The timing was catastrophic. Nobody saw the collapse coming. Or maybe everyone did, and nobody wanted to admit it. In 2022, streaming companies started cutting back. The era of content at any cost was over. Netflix, Disney, Warner Brothers, Discovery, all of them began slashing budgets. Then came 2023. The writers' strike began in May. The actors' strike followed in July. For the first time since 1960, both unions were on strike simultaneously. Hollywood ground to a halt. Productions shut down. Soundstages emptied. Workers lost their jobs. But here's what people don't realize. The strikes weren't the cause of the collapse. They were the accelerant. The real problems had been building for years. Tax, incentives. Georgia offers productions 20 to 30% in tax credits. The UK offers 25 to 40%. Canada, Ireland, New Mexico, New Jersey. Everyone is competing for Hollywood's business. And California. California's program caps out at $330 million per year. It's not even close to competitive. Actor Rob Lowe recently explained why his game show The Floor is filmed in Ireland instead of Los Angeles. His words were blunt. It is cheaper to bring 100 American people to Ireland than to walk across the lot at Fox. The numbers tell the story. In 2021, television production in Greater Los Angeles generated 18,560 annual shoot days. By 2024, that number had collapsed to 7,716. A 58% decline in just 3 years. Soundstage occupancy, which had been at 93% from 2016 to 2022, dropped to 69% in 2023, then to 63% in 2024. At Radford Studio Center specifically, occupancy fell to 63%, and 36% of the remaining leases were set to expire by August 2026. The revenue from the property covered just 21% of the cost of servicing the debt. 21%. Hackman Capital hadn't made a payment on the loan since it matured in June 2025. The restructuring negotiations failed, and in January 2026, the company informed investors it was surrendering the property to Goldman Sachs. Numbers are abstract. Let me make this real. In February 2024, a worker named J.C. Spike Osorio was walking through the catwalks at Radford Studio Center. He fell through aging wood and died. A Cal OSHA investigation found that the facility's infrastructure was deteriorating. The penalty? $45,000. That's the human cost of deferred maintenance of budget cuts of an industry in decline. But Spike Osorio isn't the only casualty. Since 2022, Los Angeles has lost an estimated 41,000 entertainment jobs. Motion picture and sound recording employment in LA County dropped from 142,000 in 2022 to around 100,000 by late 2024. Writing and acting roles are down nearly 40% compared to 2022. In 2025, over 17,000 additional jobs were cut across television, film, broadcast, news, and streaming. That's an 18% increase from 2024. These aren't just statistics. These are grips and gaffers, makeup artists and costume designers, caterers and drivers, people who built careers over decades, now scrambling to find work. A hairdresser named Sally Saganovich has worked in Hollywood for 40 years. She told reporters that the current environment is unlike anything she's ever seen. Even the infrastructure is crumbling. Scoring stages, the studios where film music is recorded, saw bookings collapse from 127 days in 2022 to host on-set days in 2025. That's a 91% decline. The musicians who create the soundtracks for your favorite films and shows, they're leaving Los Angeles, moving to London, where the work is. Meanwhile, companies that bet billions on soundstage expansion are watching their investments evaporate. Blackstone partnered with Hudson Pacific Properties to buy 2.2 million square feet of studio space in 2020. Netflix is their largest tenant. Hudson Pacific's shares have lost 90% of their value since their 2020 peak. The people who made the bets are surviving. The workers. Radford isn't alone. Earlier this year, a $230 million state-of-the-art studio called East End Studios opened in the Arts District of downtown Los Angeles. 255,000 square feet of space. Mayor Karen Bass attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Not a single production has signed on to film there. We just had all the major networks. All the major streaming platforms walk through this facility, the studio's managing partner said. They can't believe how nice it is. And yet the stages remain empty. There are approximately 300 sound stages in Southern California. By some estimates, half of them are vacant right now. The studio market in Los Angeles isn't just struggling, it's fundamentally broken. And here's the terrifying part. This collapse isn't happening because demand for content has disappeared. Netflix has 325 million subscribers globally. Streaming is bigger than ever. The collapse is happening because the content is being made somewhere else. In 2024, Los Angeles' share of global scripted production fell to 18.3%, down from 21.9% just 2 years earlier. The UK has more than doubled its stage-based production capacity in the last 5 years. So has Georgia, so has Ontario, Canada. Meanwhile, Los Angeles, the birthplace of the film industry, the place that invented Hollywood, is watching its foundational industry migrate to other states and other countries. Governor Gavin Newsom called the industry on life support. He wasn't exaggerating. Stand at the corner of Ventura Boulevard and Radford Avenue today, and you're standing in a place that changed the world. 98 years ago, Max Sennett saw a lettuce farm and imagined a studio. His vision was so powerful that an entire neighborhood was named after what he built. Generations of artists walked through these gates. Writers who crafted stories that made us laugh and cry. Actors who became part of our cultural memory. Crew members who dedicated their lives to an art form. Gilligan stood on this lot, trying to get off an island. Mary Riches threw her hat in the air here. Jerry Seinfeld complained about nothing here. And now the world's largest independent studio owner is handing the keys to a bank. Goldman Sachs will take possession of a facility that was appraised at $1.8 billion. A facility with 55 acres, 22 sound stages, and nearly a century of history. What happens next is uncertain. Goldman hasn't announced plans. The lot could be sold. It could be redeveloped. It could be demolished. But here's what is certain. The industry that made Los Angeles famous is in existential crisis. Productions are leaving. Workers are being displaced. Studios are defaulting on their loans. California is losing a competition it didn't even realize it was in. A competition for the industry it created. The question now isn't whether Hollywood will survive. It probably will, in some form. The question is, will Hollywood survive in Hollywood? Or will Studio City become just another Los Angeles neighborhood with an outdated name? A reminder of what used to be made here, before the industry moved on. Max Sennett's bungalow still stands on the Radford lot. 2 of the original 1928 sound stages are still there. Monuments to a vision that transformed a lettuce farm into magic. Now they're assets on a bank's balance sheet, and somewhere, in a storage facility, the set of Jerry Seinfeld's apartment sits in the dark, waiting to see if anyone will ever turn the lights back on.